Good morning, everyone. This is Karen doing a first tutorial for Dungeon Alchemist, and I'm relatively new to this software. I've been using it now for a few weeks and was looking for some options online about creating rooms at differing elevations. And what I found, there was some basic information on how to set the default height to different heights, differing from the static or generic that we see when we create a new map. So creating a new map, you can obviously change the elevation, the room placement to either water level, plateau, or mountaintops. What I found is that there's ways, very simply, by editing the text file, the actual DA file, and there's one place that you can actually reset one of the values that will then allow you to create rooms on any level after you've created the default map. So I'm going to walk through a bunch of steps here, kind of go over some of the things that I found with it, go over some of the challenges that I think are still faced by using this method. But I do believe that this is the simplest way to create maps that have differing levels of elevation. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to go ahead and create a map. I have it set to digital 24 by 25 by 25. Setting it to grasslands and setting the elevation generically as flat so that it's easier to see the differing elevations once we place the rooms. I'm going to go ahead and create this map as a blank. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and, with it basically blank, I'm going to go ahead and save this into my folder where I keep my maps. And I'm going to save this just under elevation tutorial. Obviously you can name it anything you'd like. And now I'm going to actually keep that folder open on my desktop. I'm just going to minimize it. We're actually going to be going back to this file, the actual DA file, very, very frequently throughout this process, and I'll show you how easy that is. So the first thing we're going to do is, if anyone who doesn't know, generically the elevation at water level is 0.2 units in the DA file. So in the actual text of the file, you'll see it as 0.2. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out, I'm going to use very simple rooms also, just so we can keep this as simple as possible. So we're going to start off and we're just going to use the mansion pre-designated room types, and I'm going to take a basic room. So we're just going to take a great hall, and I'm going to leave the objects, leave everything as is, and I'm just going to create that in this upper corner. And we'll do about a let's do an 8 by 8, and we're going to go ahead and let that populate. Excuse me. What that does, obviously you guys are aware, it's going to drop all the objects, and now everything in this room is assigned to the height of 0.2, the value of 0.2. Now, what we're going to do now, to show you how simple and easy this is we're going to go ahead and resave this now. Just save right to the file that we've already been using. Now I'm going to go into that file, and I'm going to open this, and I'm going to open it in Notepad. I use Notepad in this. I usually use you can use Notepad++, really any text editing software. I use Notepad simply because it is available to everyone. Anyone who's using Windows, obviously you have access to the standard Notepad. So I'm going to go ahead and open the file in Notepad and bring it on screen. And I'm going to show you guys how, when a map is created, these initial settings you see here at the very top, these are the generic default biome settings for the map that you created. So as you see right now, we're creating at room height 0.2. I've seen in previous posts, previous videos, where people will make rooms and then move the flooring to then raise the room that they've created. It creates a void underneath of the building, which you have to do a lot of work to fix to make the terrain work. The method I'm going to show you is actually going to eliminate the necessity to do that. So to show this a little bit more dramatically, I'm going to go ahead and change the room height. So what I'm basically doing right now is I am changing the default room height that the file thinks that we're using. I'm going to go ahead and make it 2. I'm going to raise it quite a bit. And now I'm going to save this file, and I'm going to minimize it because we're going to keep coming back to this. Okay, or actually I'm just going to go ahead and close it and we'll go ahead and reopen it here shortly. So now, going back into Dungeon Alchemist, we're going to go ahead now and reopen the map. And we're just going to double click, and we're going to reopen it once we've saved it. Now, as you can see, the room that was currently built prior is still there. That room still exists at level 2.0. Now, if I turn on, one way you can quickly see this also is I'm going to go ahead and turn the grid on. I'm going to go ahead and snap it on. Now, what you see now is the current map that we're looking at has the grid set higher. It's actually at level 2. And for those who haven't seen yet, or maybe aren't aware, level 2 is actually the exact point that you could essentially have the second floor of this building. If you were to stack something on top of this, it would be basically at level 2. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the rooms. I'm going to stick to mansion. And now, actually in this case, we're going to go to village. I'm going to go ahead and put a smith. Put a smithy up here on this hill. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to come over and I'm going to build this room just like we would any other room. And now I'm going to do it as a 5x5. And you'll see what it's going to do is it is now building at level 2. So now you see two completely different levels. The benefit of doing it this way, though, is if you see, you still have the terrain underneath of your original floor in your original room, but now anything we create on this level is creating terrain that matches that. So we can go into the terrain editor now, and I'm going to start out by flattening to room height. Now, this is an important thing to remember with this. So now, this whole map right now, anything I flatten to room height is flattening to level 2.0. Okay, which is the current level, like I said, that we're putting the smith on, the smithy shop on. Now, if you notice, as I'm going around, I can raise up this level all around it, and I'm raising it right now to match the level of that room. So now we have a little flat top hill. From here, I can then smooth the terrain. So if I want to make this a more gradual hill, I can smooth this down into the terrain that already existed for the first building that we did. So now this exists on two different levels, and it exists at the same time without damaging the terrain. Now, the cool thing about this is, even though we're working in level 2, you can still go and raise and lower the terrain at this building height. The only thing you have to be aware of is if you were to try to change it and say flatten to room height, it will now raise this up to the level 2.0 and flatten it, because that's the level we're currently working on. We don't want that. So what you can do now, and this is something that took some trial and error, is what you can actually now do actually we'll get to objects in a second because that is different. But I'm going to go ahead and save this map. Okay. I'm going to now go back to the file that we opened, or back to the actual DA file, and I'm going to reopen that inside of Notepad. Now, if I want to go back and say make an adjustment to the first level, the first room that we did, the mansion room, if I go back and now save this back to level 2, point 2, from 2 to point 2, if I save that, close it, and now we're going to reopen the map again. What this now did, now notice it kept our elevation, it kept our the hill, it kept the terrain, everything is fine. But now I'm back to this level. So if I go back now, I can say, okay, well, I didn't finish this, so I want to now add a hallway, coming off of this room. I can now go back into, now I'm making adjustments now back to this level, and it automatically now will start to add things back to this room. So if you notice, it went ahead and reconnected. It reestablished this connected to this room now, and we're right back on track. So I can now go between the levels. Now, if I want to go up here, if I add a room up here now, it will add it at the lower level, and it will basically break the terrain, it will drop the terrain, and it will not be connected to this building. Right now, as I said, we're working in the file in the part of the elevation that has the original room at point 2. So this is at point 2, this one up here is at 2.0. You can do this repetitively. You can do this at multiple levels. Sorry, I'm sitting here making changes to this door without meaning to. You can now do this at multiple different levels. I can make a level at 4. I can actually, and I'll show you. I'll go back in, I'll resave this file. I'll go back to the file. I will reopen it again in Notepad. And now let's say I want to build something really high up. So I'm going to put something on level 5 actually, not even 4. We're going to go up to level 5. I'm going to go ahead and save this, drop it, reopen the map again. And now I am working on a whole much higher level. Now, you do have to be careful with doing the extremes because the terrain will eventually, it does have a hard, it's going to be much steeper. But you can, again, put a little room. So I can go up here and let's say I want to put a little cabin up here on this on a hill, really high up. It's going to go ahead and jump the terrain up. It'll move everything up where it needs to be. And now I can raise up this terrain to match it. So again, like we did earlier, I'm going to go ahead and just move around. And I'm going to go ahead and move enough terrain up to the floor level in this corner. And if I keep going, I can then go to my smooth. I can smooth out this hill and make it, you can make this a really steep incline. You can adjust the terrain however you want. So you could actually raise everything up between here and there, creating your, some little hills, and make this a more gradual steps of hills. And then again, we could, smooth it out a little bit, make it look a little more natural. So again, this is just a very quick example of how quickly you can add things on different levels. The one big thing to remember, and I haven't fully tested this with every different type of item, but something to keep in mind is when placing objects. Objects, when you place them, are trying to place them into the rooms that you're building. So right now I'm building at level 5. So if I have a table that I want to put in the room, you'll notice in this building, I can put it at the level of the building and it will snap to the building. If I were to try to then put it over top of this room, it's wanting to raise it to level 5, so it's putting it in midair. You can use this technique to put objects in midair above buildings, above rooms. But if you're wanting to adjust or toy with any items within each room, you need to be working in that level. So again, this is just the basics of how to do this, but I think this is definitely going to help a lot of people knowing that you can absolutely 100% build in different levels using the basics of just going back to the file. So again, one more time, any level that you would like to work on, simply open up the file, open up wherever you save your map, open up the map in your notepad, and change this first room height number, and that will set you to your default, and that will be the elevation that you're working on. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate it. Hope this helped, and we'll talk soon.